Welcome to the Resiliency of the Human Spirit podcast, where we share all about human triumphs for the collective's healing and empowerment. I'm your host, Priscilla Hanley. My guest today is Elana Davidson. Elana is the best-selling author of the book Finding Your Own Happy, The Soul Searcher's Guide to Peace and Happiness in Everyday Life. Elana specializes in helping empathic and sensitive people put an end to emotional exhaustion, drain, and overwhelm. She helps people heal from their past pain and trauma and reclaim their confidence so that they can experience true peace and happiness in navigating the world with ease. Without further ado, I'm going to bring Elana on right now. Hi, Elana.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here having this conversation with you.
Me too. I'm so glad to have you here. I know we had some scheduling conflict, but I'm so glad you're here today. So, Ilana, we connected a few months ago where you shared your personal journey with me. And like I said, I'm happy that you're here today to share more about your empathic journey and how you are helping people through your work. Empathic
Yes,
people, I should
yes,
say.
I love sharing, so I'm excited to talk to your audience and share what I learned about being an empathic person that has helped me really go from a place of struggle, overwhelm, depression into a place where I just really happy and really love my life.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it started so of course at the very beginning, but sort of the story as I tell it starts when I was about 11 years old. Uh, I had a big loss in my life, and that's really the point that I can say that I was really struggling with depression. Maybe actually even a little earlier, but so starting when I was very young, I struggled with depression and went through my life for many, many years, decades, in fact, wondering what was wrong with me because I tried so many things to work on sort of my stuff. I grew up in a sort of new age alternative environment. So it was a lot of personal development, a lot of self reflection. And I wondered at some point why, after so many years of working on, quote, my stuff, I still wasn't all that happy. I was still really struggling in my life. I was still feeling depressed. And it's like, I feel like I don't have any less stuff to work on. And I actually hit rock bottom. I hit a place where I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I cannot go on the way I'm living and be okay. Like I was in so much pain, so much suffering, so much overwhelm that I said, either I'm going to take my own life or I'm going to figure out how to be here in a way that works for me and doesn't hurt so much. And that was really a moment when I dug deep and said, okay, I'm not willing to end my own life. I'm going to find a solution. I'm going to find a way to get to a happier place. And no matter what it takes, I'm committing to being here and doing this. And so I just started to dig really, really deep inside of myself using the things I'd learned from other people that maybe helped a little, but hadn't gotten me to the source, really to the root of things. And partly what I discovered on that journey is that I'm a highly sensitive and empathic person, and that a lot of the experiences, emotions, feelings that I thought were my stuff were me being highly aware of other people and other people's energy and other people's feelings. And that for most of my life, I'd been taking on other people's emotions, other people's feelings, and that had been a huge contributor to my depression, if you will. And so learning to understand that so much of the emotion, the feeling, the heaviness that I was experiencing, carrying around with me was not mine, was really a huge turning point. The beginning of this journey of coming out of decades of struggle with depression and getting to a happier place. Now, that was one huge piece. Another piece was recognizing that I had some unaddressed and unresolved trauma from my childhood and working through that. And often I see these two pieces going hand in hand. People who are highly empathic and sensitive also have grown up in somewhat traumatic family environments, and they get mixed together and have a really huge impact on how we feel in our lives.
Right. So, what was the light bulb moment for you when you said, "Oh, yeah, this is the issue. I am a highly empathic person."
Yeah, well, there was a few moments where it started to dawn on me, right? And one was, um, I had learned sort of this concept that maybe I wasn't always feeling my own thing. So it was first intellectual. Somebody had introduced me to that idea. And then I had a moment, a couple moments right around the same time. One, I'd been with this boyfriend and I'd broken up with him. And like the whole time I was in that relationship, I was an emotional wreck. And I was feeling much better. I went over to his house for something, maybe to pick something up. I can't remember. But I walked in the door and was hit by a wave of emotion, like a flood of emotion. I went, "Oh my God, like all this stuff that I've been feeling all these months of being with him, it wasn't mine. Like it was him and his family." And so it just hit me walking in the door. And I had that contrast. I was like, "Oh, okay. Now I see it so clearly," because I was feeling fine until I walked in the door. And then another time, there was a space that I used to go where some friends lived, and I would go to their house, and I would often feel weird. I thought I had social anxiety. I thought I had a bunch of social issues. And I went over there feeling pretty good, walked in the door, felt horrible, and walked out and felt better. And I said, "Okay, that is also not mine." And so that was the beginning of me really getting this thing of like, wow, okay, there's something entirely different than what I thought going on here. And that I am way more sensitive to other people and other people's energy than I realize. And I need to start paying attention and start to learn what that is and how that's showing up for me. And so I started to really pay attention to and look at, when am I being impacted by something coming from the outside in toward me? And when is the feeling really something originating or triggered from inside of me? And so that was part of that journey of that discernment. Oh, this is something coming to me from the outside, or something that's rising up from within me that I actually need to look at because it's my own healing. And to distinguish that, that is like so critical for so many of us, because we spend a lot of our life energy thinking there's something wrong with us and trying to fix it. And yet, you can't fix something that didn't start with you. So, if you're going to therapy, for example, or doing lots of healing work on all the things that you're feeling or perceiving, thinking that they're your issues, it's never going to resolve itself. And that was like part of my issue, like 20 years or more of personal development, where I felt like I still have so many issues. The real issue was that they weren't mine. They were just me being aware, whether it was a family member or people that I was friends with, or taking on the issues of everyone around me and then trying to, psychoanalyze myself or do the therapy on those things. It didn't work. It's like I had to know that is not mine. I can put it aside. The way you handle something that's not yours is very different than the way that you handle something that is truly your healing work. And so getting that discernment, that's one of the places I start with all of my clients, is let's really sort out what is yours to handle. And it's usually a lot smaller than most people think it is. And then what is all the other stuff that you also need to learn how to work with, but in a entirely different way, so that it doesn't affect you and overwhelm you. So that if the sensitive and empathic people of this call that are listening to this get nothing else, it's learn the difference between what is your stuff to work on and heal and what is everybody else's. And that will take you so far on your journey.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point that you bring up and such an important point. So, how do we discern what's ours and what's not ours. I mean, it feels like emotion is like a mishmash, right? Everything just
Yes.
comes together. So how do you navigate like, okay, I'm feeling really depressed today, and
Yeah.
is it me or is it somebody else's energy that I'm picking up?
Well, right what you said right there. That's the first step is that curiosity. Is this me or is it someone else? Even just asking that question puts you on the journey toward discovery. Uh, I've had the experience where I ask myself that and it shifts, right? You say, oh, is this actually my sadness? And asking that question can create not always but often an immediate shift, and you go like, oh no, actually I'm just aware of something here, cool. So I give my people the tool to just ask yourself for every thought, feeling, emotion, anything that's showing up, because we can also take on other people's thoughts, other people's points of view. Sometimes those are the internalized stories that people have fed us throughout our lives. Like, so maybe you have a point of view that your mom sort of infiltrated into your brain, like you're not good at something, or you don't like something a particular way. You can say, like, is that my point of view or is that somebody else's point of view? What is really true for me? And just ask that. And if you can do it consistently for 3 days, then you start to get a real good sense of contrast. Like, oh, all that is not me, and this is over here is what is me. So you can start to feel the difference. So that's a big tool. And then also just to start to pay attention to when and how feelings show up, right? If you walk in a room and you start feeling very different than you did before you stepped foot in that room, that's a good sign you're sensing something. If you go in to spend time with somebody and you get around that person and you feel very different than you before you did, that's a good sign that you're picking up on something that wasn't yours. You can be walking down the street and something hits you out of the blue. So a sudden change in mood or feeling is often a sign that you're perceiving something that didn't also originate from you. And you don't actually have to be in physical proximity to people. Like, I've literally just had something, like, for example, I write about this in the book, my book that I wrote called Finding Your Own Happy. I was walking through the woods and all of a sudden was feeling stressed. It's like, where did that come from? And then I have some tools to inquire into that thing, and I realized, oh, this is my friend. And I reached out to him and said, "Are you feeling stressed?" He said, "Yes." And we had a little conversation, and the stress I was feeling, poof, just went away. I was like, okay, that's that. So all of those things, paying attention to all of those things will start to clue you in to what is showing up for you that is just purely awareness of other people and what is actually more of your own feeling. And it's a practice, and you start to be able to discern more and more, sort of like when you were saying it's all just like mushed up together. The more you pay attention, the more you can sort out, oh, that's this feeling, that feeling. Or even I'm to the point where I'll get a sense of, oh, this feels like energy from this person. This feels energy from this other like, I can tell who I'm picking up on sometimes.
Wow, that's amazing. Have you had any instances where you kind of tune into your emotions and you're kind of like at a loss? It's like, I don't know what's mine or what's other people's.
Yeah, sometimes I have to dig really deep to understand, or just like, oh, I have this heaviness. I don't know where. There are some days when, like, there's just a heaviness that will come over me. I'm practiced enough now to know, like, this probably isn't mine, but I might not be able to pinpoint where it's coming from, and might not be able to immediately shake it. So, like, and those are the more frustrating days, because it's like, okay, I know this isn't mine. I'm not sure why this is showing up. What is getting me tangled up? And how do I disentangle myself so I can come back to what I've learned is me, which is peace, joy, lightness, happiness. And I think that's the truth for all of us, that when we clear out everybody else's energy and we disconnect ourselves from the pain and suffering of the past and the projection and worry into the future, and we're just being fully present, our own energy is peace, is joy, is happiness, is ease. Right? So if I'm not in that state, then there's something else going on. And yeah, sometimes it's a lot of inquiry and a lot of digging. And there are reasons why also like you're feeling somebody else's stuff, but there's sort of an entanglement with your own thing, right? Maybe you're attached to rescuing them in some way or playing a certain role in their lives, or so there can be some work to really look at and sort out, and oftentimes this stuff is happening subconsciously. Why do we keep drawing in a particular person's energy into our space and then not be able to shake it? So there's a lot of nuance and layer, but really this first step of just acknowledging that it's not you and starting to discern the difference will take you a good deal of the way on the journey.
Yeah, wow. As you were talking, a couple important points stood out for me. It's like number one, be in the present moment because, like you say, our energy is love, light, and peace. If we
Yes.
are
Mhm.
fully focused in the present moment. And the other point is, we don't realize how intricately connected we all are. I mean, like your story, you were walking through the woods, and out of the blue, you feel stressed, and you're picking up on your friend's energy. So
Yeah.
you and your friend, you know,
Yeah, we're very
connected,
connected.
right?
Mhm.
So I want to ask you this. Is there a difference between an empath and a highly sensitive person? I've heard these two
Yeah.
terms, but I don't know whether they mean the same thing or is there a slight difference?
I think there is a difference. I would say not all highly sensitive people are empathic, and not all empathic people are highly sensitive, although they can go together quite a bit, right? So a highly sensitive person is going to have more sensitivity to the stimuli around them, right? And so an empath is also highly sensitive to other people and other people's energy and other people's feelings. Some people are physical empaths, so they'll be highly sensitive to other people's physical symptoms. Like I've heard of people who go to the doctor thinking they're having a heart attack, only to find out later that somebody else in their family had a heart attack and they were feeling it. Whereas a highly sensitive person, right? Like, so sound, light, other sensations, it's more like a tactile sensory experience is often present, right? So, like bright light or harsh noises might be hard for a highly sensitive person. But again, a highly sensitive person can also be sensitive to other people's energy, right? And then an empath is the one that really is feeling into that energy, that external energy, whether it's other people's feelings and emotions. Some empaths are highly sensitive to energies of the planet or of animals or of children, right? They have different capacities. And they can also be highly sensitive to things like sound and light and other energy as well. So that's how I see it. I don't know if other people did, distinguish it differently, but for me that seems to be a good distinction. And so there's definitely lots of overlap, but they're not always the same thing.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So I want to circle back about you walking in the woods and then feeling stressed. You said you use some tools to help you to realize
Yeah.
that it's not yours, but it's your friend's
Yeah.
stress that you're feeling. So if you could share with us the tools that you use
Yeah.
to help you with that?
So the first question I would ask myself, like as that emotion hit me, is to say, wait a minute, is this actually mine? And then feel in my sense, do I get a yes or a no? And sometimes that question itself will just make everything feel lighter. And a yes is light, a no is heavy. So that can just feel light. And then I have a process of inquiry. I was trained in something called transformational kinesiology. And For those of you who are not familiar with kinesiology, it's a way to work with muscles of the body to get feedback. So you can get a strong or weak muscle response. Some people also use a similar technique with a pendulum, and it can do a
Mm.
similar thing. But it's just a training tool for your intuition. And so I would muscle test. And if for those of you who are not just listening, you can put your thumb and index finger together and then put your of one hand and then put your index finger through the other hand and try to push your thumb and finger apart. And so right now it's not going, so I'd say yes, and then I'll say no, and when I get a no, it slides apart. And so that's a basic muscle test that you can do. So I could say, does this feeling belong to me? No. Does it belong to somebody else? And then I get a yes. And I might have just had a hunch in that moment. Oh, let's say I start, is this my mom? No. Is it a friend? Yes. Is it this friend? Yes. Okay. And so that has trained me so much. And it's been one of the tools I've used to really learn a lot about being empathic and really understand on all of these layers what is occurring for me, and also work with my subconscious, because like I said, a lot of the stuff that's going on, a lot of the ways that we track energy, that we pull in other people's energy, has become automatic. It's the thing we learned in childhood to try to cope with our experiences, try to process what we were um, perceiving and not knowing how to deal with, and we've developed all these subconscious coping mechanisms. So diving into that, getting to understand, like, oh, I'm for example, I am absorbing and taking in all of my mom's energy because I think on some level that if I can process it for her, which doesn't actually work, by the way, but from my childhood logic, if I can process her heavy feelings, then maybe I can take them away from her, and then she can stop having so many of them, and she can be more happy, and she can be more available to connect with me. Right. So on some level, on some point in my childhood, I started doing that subconsciously. And I think a lot of us do that subconsciously. And then it became automatic. And then I just did it with everybody. And so it took some inquiry and discovery to learn, oh, that's one of the things I do, is I just try to take on everybody's feelings from them, try to process them as if they are my own, so that I can shift the dynamic. And so part of what happens also for empaths, you feel the negative feelings of someone else, and I would say most of us are more highly attuned to negative feelings than positive ones. And there are historic biological evolutionary reasons for that, which I won't get too
Mm.
much into right now. But so if you're around somebody who's having a heavy or negative feeling, it seems like perfectly logical. Like, let me just fix this feeling for that person, and then we can both feel better, right? Like, oh, I don't want to feel crappy around this person. So let me try to just fix it for both of us. It doesn't work, really. Like, you just end up with a whole lot of more feelings, right? Because they're partly creating and choosing the feelings that they're having. And also on another level, like, if you're trying to take away those feelings from somebody, you're taking away their opportunity to learn and grow from what that feeling is showing them and the feedback that it's giving them. Right. So, but this subconscious thing of like, let me try to take away your feelings so that you'll feel better, so that we can have a better relationship, I think is a very common subconscious pattern that empaths do. And then it's really overwhelming and really draining. Instead of
Right.
learning how to have good boundaries and learning how to let the other person have their emotional experience without us having to take it in and take it on and be impacted by it, which is a whole other level of skill.
Yeah, as you were talking, I kind of had a download, and I think I'm being urged to bring up this topic about detachment. As empaths, you kind of want to try and help people, right? Because
Yeah.
you feel for people. And so by helping, you take on, like what you said, their energy, their emotions, and you're trying to process it for them. But I think the paradox of the solution is that it's detachment. You gotta just respect the soul's
Mm.
journey,
Yeah.
another soul's journey, and soul lessons that they choose for themselves. Although it may be difficult, but it's really, we are actually doing a disservice if we take on the soul's
Yes.
lessons. Do you know what I
Exactly.
mean?
And like when I looked really deeply into it, because I used to be a highly codependent, people pleaser, rescuer, trying always to save somebody else. But when I really pulled back the layers and did my own healing work around it, I realized it that was actually, and not everybody wants to hear this, but it was actually incredibly self-serving. And there's I wish I remembered, but in Codependence Anonymous, there's this statement about how people like who are not recognized with their codependency see themselves. They see themselves as the most selfless, giving person, when in actuality, we are a little bit missing seeing the other person and respecting the other person for their individual autonomy and so forth. We're so fixed on trying to rescue and heal them and kind of intervene and interfere with their lives when they've haven't really asked for it, because at least in my experience, so often it's wanting them to reciprocate is a piece of it. And then also, like I said, wanting to take away those things for that person, not entirely for their own good, but so that they will be available to us and they will show up for us, right? There's a tricky, tangly part within all of that where we're trying to help other people that is not as altruistic and pure as sometimes we think it is at a certain step on the journey. So the invitation is to really look at what are your motivations for trying to help people, trying to fix people. Have you been asked to fill that role in somebody's life? What's the cost and price that you're paying? Because a lot of us self-sacrifice to try to help someone else, and it ends up costing us in the end, and that's also not a kindness to ourselves or to other people. And um, one of the sort of analogies that I've given, or like imagery that I've given, is like, yes, we want to be supportive and caring to people, right? So here's a person walking in the world and they're up against a feeling, a challenge, or a problem. The way that we become sort of codependent and try to rescue is we then put I'm going to use a little thing, we put ourselves in between the person and their problem, right? So now we're buffering them from the impacts of their choices, from the feelings that are coming up that are basically information and feedback about their life that will help them adjust and grow, help them know how what they're putting out in the world is coming back to them. Right? So we get in the way of that, and now they're not getting the channel, they're not getting the information. But, okay, we wanna support the person. So you come and you have the person's back, right? So you're not getting in the way anymore of the feedback, but you're saying, "I'm here to help you, support you. Here to help you figure out how to face the challenging things in your life, but I'm no longer playing interference. I'm no longer getting in the way of those things or, um, handling it for you. I am going to give you the support to help you to handle it for yourself." And it's
Wow.
same with parenting, right? A lot of parents will get in the way or try to solve something for their kid rather than coming alongside and giving them the tools to grow into independence. And it's true with all of us. Like, let's be the friend that helps that person gain the capacity to deal with their life issues rather than handling them for them so they never learn and grow and never get the skills to handle them themselves. So that's a good question to ask. Are you helping someone in a way that's giving them the tools and the capacity and the ability to handle their own life issues and to grow into being more competent and capable? Or are you helping helping in such a way that just makes them dependent on you and incapable of doing it for themselves? So that, I mean, I know you use the word detachment, but that sort of, I guess, nuanced of how do you navigate caring about people and wanting to support them in a way that honors their soul journey and honors their path and doesn't get you karmically entangled in
Right,
interfering with that journey.
right. And what you say is true. I love that analogy where you said, I got your back. So you're at the back. You're not in the middle where you're taking on all this stuff. I
Yeah,
like that a lot.
absolutely. And I had to
So,
learn that, of course, the hard way. Like I was playing interference a lot of the time and trying to rescue certain friends and being in very dysfunctional codependence. And it was creating a lot of hardship and problem in my own life, not to mention not really creating success for them as well.
right. So, something happened recently with me, and I'm starting to think that I'm an empath myself. I never thought I was an empath, but
Hmm.
I'll share this experience with you. So, I was, I guess I was in bed reading a book or something, and all of a sudden I had this heaviness and very emotional.
Hmm.
I started tearing up for no reason. Like I was lost. I was like, where is this coming from? And I think I realized through some reflection that I think I'm picking up on the collective energy
Yeah.
because there's a lot of anxiety, stress, fear in the collective. And I think I was somehow picking that up. So, for people who are maybe in a similar situation as I was, what advice would you give to us to help us to navigate this journey of picking up the collective, the big collective
Yeah.
energy?
What I think the first piece goes back to the piece that I mentioned before was the recognition. Like, oh, I'm tapping into the collective. Uh, Also, there's a subconscious program that many of us bought into, myself included, when we came onto this planet, that we were going to be somehow planet savers and planet rescuers. And we were going to try to take away all the pain of the and suffering of the world, and we were going to heal the planet. And so that's a program that sort of we bought into. Like, I'm going to be part of this collective effort to rid the planet of all suffering. And again, just like it doesn't work with individual people, it doesn't work with the planet because all of those individual people are also, to some degree, creating their own suffering. And I mean, not to be a victim blamer. I don't mean it in that way at all, right? And but again, there's a lot of heaviness on the planet, and when we think that it's our job to fix it and to rescue and to heal, ooh, that's a tough job that never ends, right? I'm trying to think because this was a big issue for me as well, and I just had an epiphany, I had a shift. I'm like, okay, they use the term when I was learning about it, universal surrogate. So, you're just a surrogate for everybody else's issues, and you're just going to try to take them on and heal them. And when I recognize, like, that's not my job, that's really not my job, and trusting, I mean, for me, there's an act of faith and trust in, like, the cosmic order of things. And I know not everybody has that, and not everybody else is able to tap into that, but I've really been able to tap into that and then ask myself the question. This is true of individual people and also planetary issues. What is truly mine to do here? Right? Is this mine to do? Sometimes we feel guilty about not showing up for another person. And I took on the practice of asking myself, is this mine to do? And it's mine to do if I feel a sense of lightness, joy, that I have something true to contribute. And there are times when, yes, I have the perfect thing for the situation that's going to really help somebody. And then there are times where I'm feeling like, I don't really want to, but I feel bad. Like this person is in need. I need to, like, they need something. And I've come to believe and have the faith that if it's not mine to do, there is someone else out there that's going to fill that need, that's going to help, that's going to show up for that person in the perfect way. And my saying no to that person in that moment is not abandoning them, because that's kind of a fear, like, oh, they need me. If I say no, they're not going to have help, whatever. I'm putting it into the trust of something greater, that they are going to either they need to figure it out on their own, or there's someone else out there that's going to be able to support them and help them better than I can. And I know I'm talking about individual, but I'm getting back to the collective, because that's a similar conversation for me in my collective self. Like, the world is so full of, and honestly always has been so full of strife and suffering and challenge. And, we have our current present day issues, which I won't go into. We probably each of us know what they are. We know which one of those strikes a chord in us the most. If you pay attention to and take on all of those things, you won't be able to function in the world. There's no way that you can, like, it would be hard to get out of bed, right?
Right.
And so then I start to tap into what is mine to do here? How can I, as my individual self, be of most service, be most helpful, and most productive? I'm not going to be able to take away the pain of the world. I'm not going to be able to work and human suffering. But what is my part to help alleviate some amount of the suffering on the planet? And so that question has been really helpful for me to say, I can't. I can't do all of it. But what can I do? What piece do I have to work on? And eh, I go back to when I was first talking about my story and I hit rock bottom of not wanting to live, and um, was I going to stay on the planet or not? One of the questions I came upon was like, wow, there's a huge amount of suffering on planet Earth. And what can I do to help alleviate some amount of suffering, right? If I'm going to stay and be living on this planet, then what am I doing to help with that? And then also, I asked myself the question, what can I uniquely do that no one else could do the same way that I can? And if I did not do it, the world would miss something. So these were profound questions for me that helped guide me into, what am I here for? What am I here to do? And how do I deal with the collective suffering? And that helped me tap into what we're talking about right now. Wow, I have these insights about depression and mental health and this suffering that I don't hear anybody talking about in the same way. And I know that what I share can change people's lives in a profound way. And if I'm not sharing it, nobody else is. So, I mean, this is a very long answer to your question, but all of those pieces helped me really hone in on, how can I be of service, and how can I face the suffering of the planet without taking it all on, and navigate in that way. And then also the other thing I realized, right? If you think about all the suffering in the world, it can often make you depressed or make you suffer. And I had this realization that my suffering just means there's more suffering. So, and people experiencing suffering or witnessing suffering begets more suffering. So, one of the things that I can also do in the face of a huge amount of suffering is to figure out how to access happiness and joy, because we need more happiness and joy on the planet. And if I can bring happiness and joy, that can spark happiness and joy for someone else. And it creates more happiness and joy. Because often I get that question, like, how can you be happy? How can you be joyful when there is so much suffering on the planet? And it's not that I'm happy for the suffering or for the joy, but I just know that my suffering and my unhappiness in the face of that unhappiness just adds to the unhappiness. Whereas finding some space of peace and joy is then putting a little more peace and joy into the world.
Oh yes, so well said. And I resonate 1,000% with what you said. So, okay, let's move to your business right now.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your programs and services that you offer to the collective at this time.
Yeah, sure. So my work is really around helping the highly insensitive, empathic people of the world learn how to work with and understand their gifts and navigate the journey. So, and one of the pieces of that is really learning the discernment. So there's a few steps to the empath journey as I see it. Number 1 is recognizing the difference between what is yours and what is not, right? So that's step 1. Step 2 is learning how to so there's recognizing that it's not yours, right? But that doesn't immediately change not feeling all of it. So on my journey, there was a point when I knew I am feeling so much stuff that is not mine. And I knew it wasn't mine, but I was still feeling all of it and I was still highly impacted by it. So then step 2 is learning how to work with all of the things that you're feeling so it doesn't have such a huge impact on you. And then phase 3 is sort of learning how to not be affected so much by all of that stuff in the first place. So those are 3 phases of the empath journey. And then a big piece of that is also working with and healing your own traumas and your own patterning and your own stuff. So within my work, it's really about giving you the tools to go through those 3 steps as well as heal the past pain, hurts, and trauma that keep you entangled in all of this energy and so forth. So that's sort of my really core program is that I call it Empath Grad School, right? Because it's learning how to master, come into empath mastery at this sort of higher level, this graduate level, if you will, really learning how to work with all the things. And that's a 9-week, 9 or 10 week, depending on the session that I'm doing course that really teaches you all the tools. You learn kinesiology, you learn a whole clearing process, you learn how to different energy balancing tools, just all the things. You learn how to work with the subconscious, you learn how to do inner child work, you learn how to understand chakra energy and balance your chakras. You learn how to separate your energy out from other people's. Just there's a whole lot of stuff that goes into that. So it's me coaching you, it's also you learning and training, right? So that's a big piece. And for people who really want to dive deep and go really deeply into that, that's the program. Like you really want to get this mastered, right? Then I have sort of a shorter level of work that I'll do with people. Let's say they're not quite ready for that, or they're just curious about this work. They don't really know me that much, but they have some issue that they'd really like to get beyond. Let's say I just want to figure out how to not absorb so much of everybody else's energy all the time. It's making it hard to function in my life. I'm just overwhelmed. Like, I just want to get to the bottom of this. So then we'll pick a particular issue. Let's say it's separating your energy out from other people's and not being so overwhelmed. Let's say that's our goal. We will do an in-depth, it's usually an hour to an hour and a half coaching session where we get really to the root of the patterns, the reasons why, the dynamics that are going on for that person, what's at the heart of it, so that we can shift it and disentangle you from it. And then I give you some tools to use in your everyday life. So maybe it's some of the tools I mentioned here, like, is this mine for every thought, feeling, emotion, sensation, whatever it is. And then we'll have a follow-up call to evaluate how well did what we worked on shift the thing for you, and are the tools that I gave you working? And that can be, because we really laser focus on a particular issue, we have an ability to really measure your progress and be able to tell, did we create the shift you were after? I've also done this a lot for people who are really stuck on a codependent people pleasing pattern and they find it really hard to say no or always put themselves last or stuck in that, like we can really quickly get to the bottom of why that pattern is playing out and how it's working and then create a shift. So that's sort of the other main piece that I do with folks is getting to the bottom of that. Um, and then I have a little mini support group for people that I've worked with in any of those two capacities. We meet once a month in a group, and we just do some healing sharing. Sort of that's less in depth. It's sort of just more of a check-in group. So those are really my three main offerings at the moment that people could tap into any way that they like. I also have this book called Finding Your Own Happy, which will share at the end that you can read, where I talk about all the things. So everything you read in the book and more is covered in Empath grad school. And yes, that's I'm trying to think if there's anything else, but those are my main three offerings that people can tap into and take advantage of. And if you're a struggling empath, I highly, highly recommend first reading my book, then doing some amount of work with me. If you're, really want to get into level of mastery, having all these skills, they'll be incredible. And I've had clients that have gone on and used, well, the course is not designed to make you a practitioner per se. You will learn a lot of things that you can go and then apply into whatever other kind of work you're doing that could be really helpful in the rest of your life. So, yeah, a synopsis, if you will.
It's beautiful work that you're doing, helping people to heal. I like what you say, empath mastery and empath grad school. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yes.
So, okay, you have a free gift today for our
Yes.
audience.
Yes. So the free gift is my book. So Finding Your Own Happy. And I give that away to really anybody who is um, interested. I wrote the book to make a difference for people who are struggling like I was, so that it won't take you 20 years to finally get the things that nobody else could tell me. That's really why I wrote the book, is like I was searching for this information. I couldn't find it anywhere. And I struggled a really long time trying to figure this stuff out. And I was like, wow, if I'd only known so much of this stuff so much sooner, my life could have been very different. And then I started seeing so many people who are also seemingly missing the same information. I'm like, if you just knew these things, you could change your experience of life so much faster. So take the book, read it, use it. You can get a free copy on my website, healingmindsandhearts.com. It's right on the homepage. You can just sign up, get a free copy. You can also sign up to have a call with me if you're interested in working with me there. Um, but that's a great place to start if you want to go deeper in all the stuff that we're talking about here today.
Right. Thank you for your free gift for the audience. And just wondering, do you have social media presence? Presence.
Honestly, so I was very active on Facebook for quite a while. And then I decided to shift my life. It wasn't bringing me joy. I was spending way too much time on Facebook and it was draining me. So being a highly empathic person, I was also like sometimes taking on the energy of the people I was talking with, and I just let that go. And so I don't do a lot to promote my work. I love doing podcasts, so I've decided to do what I love, which is I love talking to people about what I do. And podcasts is one of those mediums. So I do that. I do have a personal Facebook page. If you want to go on there and become my Facebook friend, you're welcome to. I do post my podcasts there. They're also all listed on my website. So yeah, if you want to hang out with me on Facebook as my Facebook friend, I'm not doing a lot of promotion, honestly. But let's get to know each other, right? Like if
Right.
you want to be part of my community, you'll see lots of fun nature pictures and me doing fun things in my life, but it's not going to be a lot of promotional content because that's just where I'm at and what I'm doing. And that's how I find happiness and joy. And yeah, so navigating this journey of helping people in my own unique way, which is very different than what everybody told me I should and how I should do it. But I it wasn't making me happy. So I'm doing what makes me happy,
Yeah, I
following
love
my own
that.
advice and finding my own happy.
I love that. You got to do what makes you happy, right? We got to just focus on joy in every
Yeah,
moment.
absolutely. And yeah,
So, okay, we have 5 minutes left. I know time flew by
it
so
really did.
quickly.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I have a signature closing question here that I ask all my guests. And so this is my final question for you today. What is your closing message for humanity to help in our collective healing and empowerment?
Hmm. Well, the first thing that just sort of burst into my heart is to know the preciousness and the gift that you are and the beauty that you are, and that there is nothing wrong with you, right? So, what is right with you that you haven't yet been getting? And my work has showed me that we all work incredibly well. And that if we can just learn to understand that and learn to understand how we work and peel back the layers of hurt and pain that were brought to us often by other people's suffering, we can begin to uncover and actualize and realize the true gift that we are. So, if I wish nothing else in my work and in this journey is help people who have gotten the message that there's something wrong with them, that they're somehow broken, to reconnect with and tap into the beauty and the gift that they truly are, and the unique contribution that they have to bring to this world. Because when you know your light, you know your joy, you know your beauty, you will show up in a way that contributes to the healing of humanity and the transformation of the planet.
Wow, such a beautiful message. Thank you.
Yes,
And I
thank
so
you.
resonate with that. Thank you, Ilana, for being here today and for sharing your wisdom, your light with
Yes,
our
thank you. It's
audience
been
today and
such
for
a
the
pleasure.
collective. I can really feel your light.
Thank you.
And
Thank you. Yes, from one heart to another. It's been such a joy and such a pleasure to be here and to be here with all of the listeners as well. Like tapping into the collective energy, just sending so much love and joy and warmth to all of you who are on this journey, who are waking up, who are curious about tapping into your own wisdom, to your own healing. And thank you all for being on this journey with us.
thank you so much. And for everybody who's watching and listening, thank you for your time. And until next time, bye for now.